On January 7, 1972, 19-year-old Nancy Elaine Anderson was found dead in her apartment in Waikiki, Hawaii. She had sustained 63 brutal stab wounds, 3 of them being severe lacerations. The case was initially suspected to be a suicide, but turned into something else entirely once these injuries were noticed. The investigation that followed was long and winding, and would span decades until a breakthrough in 2022. Who killed Nancy? How did the police crack the case after all these years? Today, we are looking at the 50-year-old cold case of Nancy Anderson that was finally solved in 2022. But before that, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button as it helps us and motivates us to create more content for you. Now, without any further ado, let's dive into the story. Nestled in Honolulu, the capital city of Hawaii, the neighborhood of Waikiki is a major tourist attraction for recreational activities and holiday enjoyment. The white sand beaches fascinate people from all over the world. The tropical climate, mystical landscapes, and sunny beaches make every day seem like a fun holiday to local residents. Apart from Waikiki's reputation as the perfect place for vacation, it is also famous for a case that horrified the country in 1972. Born to Merle Van Anderson and Thelma Bernice Brown Anderson on November 10, 1952, Nancy Elaine Anderson was an amicable person. She was one of 10 siblings and grew up in a large household full of love and laughter. Born in Bay City, Bay County, Michigan, she wanted to taste the life of the islands after graduating from John Glenn High School in 1970. She had always wanted to experience the thrill and adventure of island life. Before she started college, she wanted to experience this life she had always wanted. She moved to Hawaii in October 1971 to live in an apartment at 2222 Aloha Drive in Waikiki, and got a job at a McDonald's at the Ala Moana Center. Nancy was very friendly and too trusting with strangers, according to her roommate Jody. Her outgoing nature and amiable personality seemed to raise caution in the eyes of her friends, colleagues, and family. Everyone in her life stated that she dated several different men, which seemed to raise red flags around 19-year-old Nancy's choices. At work, however, her manager, Pedro Rapolio, remembered her as a dependable and friendly employee. A coworker, Julie Torres, believed that she was not promiscuous, but was too friendly. No one would imagine that her friendly conduct could lead her to a ruthless death. She went back to her hometown in Michigan for Christmas and New Year's that year to visit her family. She returned to Waikiki a few days into the new year, unaware of what awaited her. It had barely been 2 months since she had moved to Hawaii to live her dream life, but it ended on January 7, 1972, when she was brutally stabbed to death. Jody Spooner, Nancy's roommate in Hawaii, returned home from shopping at 2:30 p.m. on January 7 to find 2 unknown men selling silverware to Nancy. Jody sat down with Nancy to watch their demonstration, but neither of them ended up buying anything. After talking to Nancy for 10 minutes, Jody went to her bedroom to take a nap around 2:40 to 2:50 p.m. Even though Nancy and Jody were on good terms and had a friendly relationship, Jody liked to keep to herself, as Nancy often invited random strangers over. She believed that Nancy was too trusting, and she talked to strangers without any regard for her safety. Jody recalls that all the doors to the apartment were closed and locked when she went for a nap. As she drifted to sleep, Jody could hear the radio from Nancy's bedroom and the sound of running water from her bathroom. When she woke up around 5:15 and went to the kitchen, she still heard the noise of running water coming from Nancy's bedroom, the door to which was now standing ajar. When Jody proceeded to enter the room, there on the floor, she found her roommate, covered in blood. Believing it was suicide, she rushed to her neighbors to ask for help and calling the police. The 19-year-old girl from Michigan lay still in a pool of blood, and no one knew how her life had ended. It was the evening of January 7th, 1972. Hawaii Police Department officers Mitten Galise and George Gibbons received a call around 5:29 p.m. about a possible suicide at apartment 704-2222 Aloha Drive, Coral Terrace Apartments, Honolulu. Just as the police entered the apartment, they found a blood-stained blue and white towel near the entrance. When they entered the bedroom, they found Nancy lying unresponsive on the floor. Police found traces of blood on the bed, in the bathroom too. Everyone was horrified by the brutal death of Nancy. The ambulance was called, but at approximately 6:01 p.m., she was pronounced dead by the physician. While Nancy Anderson was being violently slain in her small apartment, her roommate Jody Spooner, who was still inside, heard nothing loud enough to wake her from her nap. None of the neighbors saw or noticed anything unusual either. No one saw anyone coming in or going out. This case was as peculiar as it could be. The police were searching for clues everywhere, but there was very little to go on. Detective George Cruz noticed several puncture wounds on Nancy's sternum, chest, abdomen, and both thighs. Another officer noticed that her blouse was torn around her right armpit and her bra was visible. Autopsy confirmed that there were puncture wounds on her left forearm, lacerations on her upper left arm, and blood under the fingernails of both hands. The autopsy report stated that Nancy was stabbed using a paring or penknife 60 times, and she sustained 63 wounds, 3 of them being exit wounds. Nancy's death was caused by hemorrhage due to a stab wound to the heart. The instrument used was predicted to be about 10 millimeters wide and 60 millimeters long. The description of the murder instrument did not match any of the knives in Nancy's apartment. In the autopsy report, there was no trace of drugs or alcohol in her body. However, the presence of spermatozoa was confirmed, but this could just be an indicator of an active sexual life. The police relied on the recovered evidence at the crime scene to find clues. They found a bedspread, 3 towels, and 2 slippers at the scene that had blood on them. They believed that the stabbing got so violent at one point that the attacker's hand slid off the blade and received a substantial cut. The attacker then used the towel to wipe off excess blood. Police also believed that the wound on Nancy's thumb was likely inflicted in self-defense. Not only was the killer out of reach, but the murder's motive was just as vague. Nothing was missing from the house, which meant it was not a robbery. Nancy's sweet and friendly nature also meant that she hardly harbored any enemies. It was already getting difficult for the police to find new leads in this case. However, they did have a few suspects to take a closer look at. The last people to leave Nancy's apartment 704 were the 2 salesmen, Parker Graham and Jeffrey Allward. They were called in for an interrogation. They had a detailed account of how they set up a meeting with Nancy. The presentation started around 1:30 or 1:45 p.m., and when Nancy and her roommate were not interested in the products, they gave them a pie cutter and left the building without going anywhere else. Both Parker and Jeffrey voluntarily provided their fingerprints, which did not match any of those obtained at the crime scene. Their polygraph test validated their initial statements. When this did not lead anywhere, police followed up on the statements given by Jody's boyfriend, Kim Weaver. He said that Nancy would often invite strangers to the apartment and hang out with weird-looking men. He did not know the names of the guys with whom Nancy was often around, but he had given them nicknames like Frenchman, Reno, Nevada, Cowboy, and Dude from Detroit. The investigators checked out these people and their alibis. Reno, Nevada was William Manor, who dated Nancy but had never engaged in anything more intimate than kissing. He said that he did not visit her in the apartment and knew nothing about who could have been responsible for the murder. Stephanie Frazier, who lived at 2223 Alawai Boulevard, which was the neighboring building to Aloha Drive, witnessed a commotion the day the murder took place. She saw a car in the upper-level parking lot, and a Caucasian couple could be overheard arguing in the car. After 15 minutes, they left the vehicle, but Stephanie could not see whether they moved into the street or they entered the building. She described the male as tan-skinned, 5'9" to 5'10" inches tall, 25-year-old with dark brown curly hair. She believed the woman was in her 20s and had shoulder-length, dirty blonde hair. When shown multiple pictures of possible suspects, she identified a mutual friend of Jody and Kim, Richard Hacker, as the man she saw arguing in the car. However, she was not positive. Later, when the police questioned Nancy's co-workers, one of her colleagues, Karen Sullivan, revealed that Nancy had informed her during one of their lunch breaks that she had once dated a member of the mafia back home. But nothing of importance could be found and verified. The police found a Bank of Hawaii savings passbook in her purse. It said she opened an account hours before her death on January 7th. The interrogation with Paula Meyer, the bank teller, revealed that she returned from her lunch break around 2:15 and estimated that Nancy would have opened the account between 2:15 and 3 p.m. Neighbors, boyfriends, roommates, salesmen, property managers, colleagues, and family were questioned. But none of the suspects or leads the police had ended up going anywhere. Eventually, the case went cold. For the last 50 years, a number of tips and fruitless clues appeared and vanished, but police still could not find a solid suspect in the case of the murder of Nancy Anderson. However, the police department did not give up on the case of Nancy Anderson. New developments in science and technology motivated them to dig deeper and find new answers. During 2001 to 2003, blood samples found in 1972 were used to build 3 DNA profiles, 2 of males and the remaining of a woman. Everyone involved in the case was tested and ruled out as a suspect again. The fate of Nancy Anderson changed when Honolulu police received a tip in December 2021 that 77-year-old Tudor Chirila Jr. may have been connected to the murder. The Honolulu Police Department tested DNA found at the crime scene and contracted Parabon Nanolabs, a DNA technology company located in Virginia, to help out with this case. The genetic genealogists used DNA phenotyping to generate trait predictions of the suspect as he might have looked at the age of 25. Chirila resided in Reno, Nevada in 2021. Therefore, Reno Police Department was alerted about the new development in the case. They tried getting his DNA covertly but failed after weeks of surveillance. Tudor Chirila's biological son, John Chirila, was then contacted in March 2022 to assist in getting a DNA sample. On May 5, 2022, the forensic report confirmed that the DNA sample of John Chirila was related with the DNA found at the crime site. It revealed that John Chirila was the son of the person who was present in Nancy's room, thereby proving that Tudor Chirila, John's father, was involved in the case. Tudor Chirila's DNA sample matched the initial profiles found in Nancy's bedroom. This was a major breakthrough in the case of Nancy Anderson, which had only turned colder over the years. According to genetic genealogy, the suspect would have been around 25 years old at the time of the crime. As it turns out, Tudor, born on April 15, 1945, would have been 27 years old in 1972 when Nancy was murdered. He worked as a graduate assistant at the University of Hawaii at that time and used to live on Canal Street, which was within 3 miles from Nancy's apartment. After her death, he left Hawaii and graduated from law school. Tudor then worked as Deputy Attorney General in Nevada. He is listed as a long-term attorney in the Silver State, working under Attorney General Richard H. Bryan in the areas surrounding Reno, Carson City, and Lake Tahoe. He lost the election to the state Supreme Court of Nevada in 1994. The cases that involve Tudor as litigant are taxation or estate-related matters. Nancy Anderson's case is not the first that involves Tudor Chirila. In 1971, he reported that his car had been stolen. Later, he filed a complaint that the contents of his car were missing after he recovered it. Again, in 1995, then 50-year-old Tudor had a complaint filed against him that accused him of kidnapping, tying, and attempting to rape his then-girlfriend. However, the charges were dropped. In 1998, his name arose as an affiliation to the Mustang Ranch brothel owned by Joseph Conforte, Nevada's brothel boss. U.S. prosecutors identified him as the former president of AGE Corp., which acted as a front for Joseph. They were allegedly involved in a conspiracy to defraud the government. In 2022, after 50 long years, justice prevailed for Nancy, and the first arrest in the case was finally made, and Tudor Chiarella was charged with her murder. On September 6, 2022, detectives served a search warrant, located Tudor Chiarella at his residence, and collected his DNA sample using a buccal swab. Just 2 days later, Tudor attempted to take his own life, but he survived. The results allegedly linked Tudor to the murder of Nancy Anderson. After the confirmation, a non-bailable arrest warrant was released. Tudor Chiarella Jr. was finally in police custody for the fatal killing of Nancy Anderson. He was kept in Washoe County Jail in Reno, Nevada. He was later extradited to Honolulu, where he pleaded not guilty to the crime of second-degree murder of Nancy. His bail is set at $1 million. Further trials are pending in the case, but the investigation is active and ongoing. 50 years went by, but the Anderson family did not lose hope. The police department did not forget the vicious murder of the young 19-year-old Nancy Elaine Anderson. Now that a confirmed suspect has been arrested, justice for Nancy is not too far away. Developed technology and advanced genetic genealogy finally revealed the identity of the killer who had stabbed her more than 60 times. What could have been the possible motive for the killing? Do you think other people were involved in the murder of Nancy Anderson? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more. Until next time, stay safe, and thanks for watching.